Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to AtoZrunning.
Welcome back to AtoZrunning, where we help runners thrive. I'm Zach.
And I'm Andy.
And if you want us to talk about you on the show, then go to AtoZrunning.com, click follow in the top corner, hit us on social media, and just comment on stuff. Get engaged, and we might just tell people the interesting things you have to say.
Yeah, including this review. So reviewing, too, is a great way to keep in touch with us. But Laura MYFLD wrote a review that says, love that I get a briefing on recent running events and news and amazing interviews or content that is helpful and or inspiring for this amateur but competitive runner. Fave episode so far is the aerobic fitness one. Have listened 2 times already because it's very dense with info that I want to make sure I understand. Keep up the good work.
And because we like your comments so much, Laura, we're going to give you stuff for it.
Yeah, so we were doing a little bit of a giveaway to get a few more podcast reviews, either on Facebook or on Apple Podcasts, because those are the 2 platforms that allow for reviews. And so Laura is winning some Noon and an AtoZrunning shirt. So Laura, please reach out to us at AtoZrunning@gmail.com, and we will send that giveaway your way.
And it's probably worth mentioning that we're not giving stuff to everyone who writes us a review, so don't expect free stuff just for writing things. But we might share it on air.
Yeah, and we really, truly, deeply appreciate it as it helps us grow. Today on the show, we have the unique opportunity to bring to you 2 incredible stories about father-son teams in endurance racing. You won't believe what these men have accomplished and the odds that they have beaten, but even more importantly, how they have deepened their family bonds and inspired one another to do unbelievable feats. Today, we hear the stories of Jeff and Johnny Agar and Bill and Logan Johncock.
Before we get there, let's take a pit stop in the world of running and update you on some exciting news. We mentioned last week there would be some world record attempts this week, and indeed there were, and some of them were successful.
Absolutely. So Sifan Hassan set a world record for the 1-hour race. She went against Bridget Koski, which it was going to be an epic showdown, and it certainly was. Sifan ended up edging out Bridget in the last little bit there. She was about 50 meters behind Sifan, and she set the world record in 18,930 meters, which is like 11.76 miles, and that's 5:06 mile pace.
That's something. She put the previous world record was just under 5:12 mile pace, so she really put some time on it.
She did, and she looked comfortable according to reports. So I'm not super surprised that she was within herself for this event, but she did kick it in a 65.8 last lap.
So there needs to be an I told you so moment here, because Andy made the
called
call
it
last week. She said, if this is tactical, it's Sifan Hassan's advantage because she's the speedster between the 2 of them. And I basically said I didn't think it would be tactical. I could not imagine Bridget Koski would allow that to happen. But, of course, when they're running that fast, it's not really a question of she's just letting it happen. She was really putting on the hurt, and she just couldn't break Sifan.
Yeah. So it was an exciting race. I wish I could have seen it. So hopefully someday we'll be watching these races again.
Mo Farah did the same thing for the men's side in the 1-hour world record
broken.
Absolutely. And so this is actually, and Andy made this comment to me earlier when we were chatting, this is Mo Farah's first world record, which if you've been following track in the last decade, you've been hearing his name constantly because he's been winning medals left and right. But just because you win gold medals doesn't necessarily mean you're the fastest ever. And so this is really kind of an exciting moment for him.
Yeah, he's a 4-time Olympic champion, and this is his first world record. Very exciting. He actually hasn't been on the track for 3 years.
Been trying his hand at marathons.
So he's back on the track and getting a world record. He ran 21,330 meters, which is about 13.25 miles in the 1-hour time frame, and that was 4:31 mile pace.
Yeah, and it looks like he put only about 50 meters on the previous record, so it was close. It wasn't like he had a comfortable gap here on the time, so well executed to be that close and keep it tight and still secure the record.
That was a 13-year-old record, by the way.
Next up, you heard us talking with Cindy O'Feely recently on the podcast, and the British Track and Field Championships happened this past weekend, and so naturally she was competing well.
Yeah, so she just earned her third British Championship title at this event. She was the champion in the 110 hurdles, which is what her specialty is.
And we were talking with her on the podcast about how to develop speed, and so clearly she knows speed to be winning these championships like this. And if you didn't hear that episode, you should probably go back and listen to it.
Yeah, we're linking to that in our notes, which is AtoZrunning.com/episode 49.
One more little bit of race results for you. The NAZ Elite squad had an intra-squad meet, so it's just running against each other. And in the women's 10K, really a stellar performance by Kellen Taylor, running 31:06 for 10,000 meters.
And I heard Kellen Taylor on another podcast just talking about her experience and her hunger for more. And the Olympic trials marathon, she was really in shape. She's really strong, but it just didn't come together on that day. So I'm really happy for her to see her really killing it in that track zone. And hopefully we'll see her doing some great things at the Olympic trials track events coming up next spring.
Definitely. So our final comment for the World of Running stuff today is a not as positive thing. This would be coming from New Zealand's cross-country challenge. It would have been championships. They renamed it to challenge. And in that event, they had listed a rule, which this makes sense if you think about it. They listed a rule where athletes should not be spitting in an offensive manner, like near or on other athletes, basically. And that makes sense. We don't really want people spitting on us, period.
Right.
But we definitely don't when there's like COVID stuff going on. So, okay, that's the rule. But what we didn't expect was that they would disqualify two-time Olympian Robbie Johnston when he won the Masters race by like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then found out afterward that he was disqualified. And so we ourselves have an opinion about this. We are not super thrilled to hear that happened because, as you might guess, there were a lot of other runners in that race that were likely spitting quite often. It is cross country and it's running. It happens a lot. But no one else was disqualified, so he was kind of the one they chose to make an example of, which makes me sad. But also, I had an opportunity to connect with my coach, Barry McGee, on this specific issue, and naturally, he being from New Zealand and coaching runners of all levels, he had a lot of athletes in the race running in different age brackets and things. He had some guys winning some of their age brackets. He was talking it up. It was a very successful day for him as a coach. Well, he made the comment that a number of them saw the race or were in the race and saw athletes spitting all over the place, and even saw Robbie Johnston and didn't really notice anything out of line from him from others. So Robbie, if somehow these words get back to you, just know that you've got some people sympathizing and sad for you all the way over in the States. First up, we have the Agars.
Jeff and Johnny Agar are internationally known father-son duo from our very own stomping grounds in West Michigan. Having completed marathons and half Ironmans together, Jeff and Johnny continue to motivate one another to big dreams. They competed in the World Ironman Championships together. Johnny recently achieved a major goal of walking a full mile. Before his training, he had previously only gone a handful of steps. Johnny is surpassing what his doctors thought possible when he threw limitations out the window. Together, they have spurred one another along to major accomplishments, and in doing so, have inspired people around the world. Hi, Johnny and Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having us. It's wonderful to be on the podcast today, and hopefully it's going to be a good episode.
Yeah.
Your story inspires people all over the world, but you're also a local celebrity to us here in West Michigan. So we are delighted to have you guys on, not only as these local celebrities, but also as like worldwide inspiration. So we told our audience a little bit about your story before we got started, but we want to know from you how this dream came about. Because Johnny, we heard you say in an interview with Iron Man that being together, that doing this together is a dream come true. So how did this dream get started?
Well, I started with a group called My Team Triumph. They're a local organization that have multiple chapters all over the country, but they take people with disabilities and adults and kids and take them through marathons and triathlons and certain things. And I had a neighbor approach us at a Christmas party, actually, asking me if I wanted to participate in a race with him and a couple of his buddies. And I have always loved sports, so I readily accepted. And that was a dream come true. We were in front of the pace car it was a sprint triathlon. We were in front of the pace car for about 6 to 12 miles on the bike. We were cruising.
Wow.
So
he's never gone that fast again.
I've never gone that fast again. So, but it was something that I've hooked, and we did a couple other races with a couple other angels, as they're called, the athletes that pull us and stuff. And after Dad saw me do a couple races, he thought, how hard can that be to do something with Johnny, and we can do something as a family. So my sister and Dad joined in, and Team Agar was born after that. And it's just been a tremendous opportunity to do something as a family. And when you can compete in sports and do something you love as a family, that's something that you can't put a price on. So
yeah, and we had no interest in. I had no interest in doing any kind of endurance sports at all. The furthest I'd ever ran in my life was 2 miles, and that was under duress. And so I was a pitcher when I was in high school, college, and then played professionally. And so, I mean, the general assumption is that I must have been a good athlete, but the reality is I could throw hard, but the rest of my athletic skills were subpar. So running long distances was not something I had any intention of ever doing. And at my advanced age, I hadn't even thought about considering to do it. But as Johnny said, we watched him do a couple of these races. He loved it. And so I remember thinking, how hard could a 5K be, right? But at first I had to look up how many miles were in a 5K.
Yeah.
And then we signed up for one at our local church. And then I started training on Tuesday for the Friday 5K, which is really smart to do. And then it was kind of a hilly course, and I'm pushing him, an old jogger, and it was brutal. So we did a few races, and Johnny absolutely loved it. He lit up when we did these races. And so I thought, if we're going to do this, we better start training a little bit more. We ran into a group called Run GR, and we made some friends there, and they started helping us figure out how you actually do long distance running and train for it. Yeah, so there's actually a methodology behind doing long distance running, where the way you're training, how you do aid stations, how you build up to things that we had no idea how to do before. And the biggest impetus for us was we had been that's probably the second 5K we did. I think I was up in Sparta. We were beaten by I think about an 80-year-old power walker. Now, she might have been an Olympic power walker in her day, but she was still 80 years old.
Yeah,
and so I had to kick it in.
That didn't make me very happy.
Yeah, I had to kick it in to pass her towards the end. So I thought we better learn how to train, and if we're going to do more of these races, and that's what we did. And we slowly got more and more as we went along.
More and more and more until you were doing marathons and Ironman.
Yeah,
right?
It's a crazy transition because, and I blame the people in Run GR in a good way, but when you get around people that are in the running and endurance communities, as you folks know, the level of positivity is just incredible. And everybody is, not in a bad way, but they're always trying to help you do more, show you how to do it, help you train. And when we finally had done a 10K race, I said, Johnny, I've hit my physical peak. I can't do any more. And then sure enough, someone in the group said, well, if you've done a 10K, you should think about doing the 25K with the Riverbank Run, which is the biggest 25K in the country for those from the area. And so you start thinking, well, I wonder if training I could get to a 25K, which is like 15 and a half, 16 miles range. And so I did that, and Johnny loved it, of course, because he's out there with, the largest 25K in the country, thousands of people. He likes to chit chat with everybody. So he absolutely loved it. So then he was talking about, well, what's the next big race we could do? And someone from Run GR said, well, now you've done the 25K, you could think about doing a marathon. And like an idiot, you go, really? Wow. Then you start training for a marathon, and you start taking it in pieces and figuring out how to do things. And so Johnny saw all that evolving, and then he started getting things in his own mind, thinking, well, he wanted to do more than just participate in the jogger, or being in the boat or the chariot to pull in triathlons. He actually started thinking about being in a race himself.
Well, it's all about that, being around positive people and being around people that push you to be better and stuff. And I wanted to be a part of that. I don't necessarily feel like I want to run as I need to run, because that's what makes me better. And that's what pushes me to go beyond my physical capabilities, like Dad does every day. And I heard him panting behind me, and I heard that, how hard he was trying to push me across that line, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give him a break a little bit. I'm going to get off my hiney, and we'll see what I can do. So I started training, and that's been a blessing for me to be able to experience what he experiences and be able to listen to my body like every runner does, to determine, how much is enough and how much you can push yourself. And that's really been a blessing for me too.
Yeah, so I think the thing, what it really shows is, with the right motivation, you can do things you never would have dreamed of. Because, like I said earlier, I'd never run more than 2 miles in my life. Did several 5Ks, did longer and longer. Eventually, we've done 7 marathons now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've done a full Ironman. We've done tons of half Ironmans ourselves. We participated in the Ironman World Championship. So, you sit there and think, I would have bet my life against ever doing even like a 5, beyond a 5K. And here we are doing races of distances I used to think I would watch it on TV and think, that's absolutely insane. How could you ever do a race like that? And so I was able to get there. The amazing side of things, and it's easier for someone to see how an able-bodied person goes from kind of a short distance to a marathon or an Ironman. And even that's hard to fathom sometimes. When Johnny started walking, he had made a goal to walk a mile in a race. And so he had, up to that point, had only walked 22 steps in therapy school with a walker. So just to put it in perspective, that's like you or I walking to the mailbox and then saying, you know what my goal is? To run a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that level of magnitude of having done almost nothing in a relative scale and setting a goal so extreme. But it's what, and you guys have probably seen this too, when you set a goal that's really a big one, then suddenly people around you start working towards you, helping to achieve that goal. You start looking for ways to do that. He started getting more and more involved in even more training and additional races. And it kind of snowballs when you set a really big positive goal and you have a huge community of people behind you to help support you getting there.
Yeah.
So Johnny, tell us about that. Tell us about your motivation to take on and to tackle this big task.
Well, I knew that Dad was training really hard. That's my biggest motivation. Is Dad? That's always my biggest motivation. He's my motor, and my motivation is what I say. But I see him trying so hard, and the steps that he took. Right, I see that that he ran a marathon, ran a distance race, and he wasn't a distance athlete himself, so I'm thinking, why can't I take that chance, and why can't I, push myself to be better? And so I wanted to find a way to run my marathon, and it doesn't happen overnight. Like Dad said, you don't run to a mailbox and then say, I'm gonna run a marathon. It doesn't happen that way, but it happens over time, and it was long training regimen that I did, but it was healthy for me. It kept my doctor happy, that's for sure.
But it's setting that really huge goal that you never would have thought of. Because when we got invited to do the Ironman World Championship, and for those who aren't crazy nuts about the sport and who are just maybe they're aware of it, but it's called the most brutal one-day endurance event on the planet.
Yep.
And it is so hot and so windy, and the hills are massive, and we'd never even done a half Ironman before, but we got asked to do it, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, although now we're trying to get invited back, that we've actually learned how to train and everything for it. But we were so new in our endurance careers that we didn't know what we were getting into. We were so naive about it. But it was just a great opportunity, and it really opened the doors for us to see some amazing things, to visit Hawaii, see what the World Championship was all about, and then really spurred us on to keep doing more and more.
But I think, if you sell yourself short, and don't take chances and stuff, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage. So we try and say that's kind of the mantra of us, is to take life one step at a time and not worry about the big chunks or your big goals that you have, but to break those goals down, and that seems to work well for us. Break them down into smaller pieces, and you can accomplish anything that you want. So.
Yeah, and it was not easy for sure. The having not done even a half Ironman before, being invited to come out, swim in the ocean with sharks and salt water was not an easy thing. So, but it was very difficult to sit there and encourage Johnny to do more than you ever thought possible, and really push yourself hard. And then an opportunity came along for me to do the same thing, and hard for it to say, well, it's good for you, Johnny, but it's not good for me, kind of thing. So, So we agreed to do it. NBC was going to feature us in the annual broadcast that they do. So that was a cool opportunity as well, to help share Johnny's message about some of the things that he's done and what people with disabilities are able to accomplish in life. And so it's just a great opportunity, but it was fraught with disaster because of all the unknowns and how difficult it was going to be.
There's a powerful thread, and then obviously you're living it, so you know it better than I do, just trying to synthesize this thought. But that experience that you're sharing together, and you're feeding off of each other, and then the community around, and you mentioned other family members even, and certainly the community at large, and appreciate the Run GR mention. We love those folks over there too. And so many people involved in what make these kinds of experiences possible for us, help motivate us to engage with them and help celebrate them with us. I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do here too, is just continue to celebrate these wonderful experiences. So that's an incredible story.
Yeah, triathlon and endurance sports are a very selfish type of sport, because you're out there for extended hours on your own, away from your family. But the amazing thing is, without the family support and the community support, it'd be very difficult to do it. So while it's an individual sport, it's very hard to do the whole thing on your own. We know for us, we have a transition team of several relatives who come along and help us out in all the races. We did the biggest one in the world is in Germany. Yeah. We went there and did that race, and then obviously the huge one in Hawaii. And it just takes a tremendous amount of effort to do things on your own, let alone when you have a team like us.
My aunt and uncle are my training buddies. They work with me on my walking. My aunt is actually an occupational therapist. That's nice, but they help me with my training and stuff. So that's wonderful. And then we have a family affair. My sisters and my mom usually help out with our transition crew. So every part of the family is involved.
Yeah, it takes a lot to do these things, and as you can imagine, I'm sure part of what you're trying to do is encouraging people to get into get into running, or do more running and endurance sports. And I could tell you, one of the biggest things for us was having that the community of folks from Run GR, because a lot of them, they know how to do long distance running, and they can help you out and figure out these things. And so even if you're not a strong runner, there are all types of runners in groups like Run GR and others throughout the country. But I used to sit there and think, how do you run a marathon, and how do you even train for it? Well, you don't run 26 miles at one time. Like in training, you run 3 miles, you take a little break, have an aid station, then you run 3 more, and you start breaking into pieces of 5K after 5K after 5K. And we'll sit there and get to the point where we'll say anybody can do a 5K as long as if they're generally able-bodied, you're not yet injured, you break into pieces and suddenly it's actually doable. But it never would have dawned on me to do that. And I remember one time with the group, Run GR group, but we were biking, and they said, well, we're going to take a break when we get to the top of this hill, because it was a brutal hill. And I was pulling Johnny. I was just dying, going about 3 or 4 miles an hour. And then I thought, well, good, we're going to stop at the top of this hill. And we get to the top, and they didn't stop. And they just went slower. And all of a sudden your mind realizes, no, you can take a break with your body by going a little bit slower for a while, letting things recover, catch up, and then start going. And so it's a mental shift a lot of times of you just don't understand how to do it, right? And being around all those people that have been through it tons of times, helping you along the way has been a huge advantage for us.
And that's what's really been beneficial for my walking too, is I can understand what athletes go through now, so I can understand my pacing. I can understand, how to nutrition properly, and there's a lot of things that a person in a wheelchair may not be able to experience in their life. So it's been wonderful to be able to pick the brains of my friends and stuff in the group, and my coach, who actually he works with Aquinas where I went to school. So it was awesome to pick his brain and really relate myself to an athlete.
Well, yeah, and one of the races, Johnny's actually the very first race he did, you just can't experience some things until you actually do it. And so Johnny, during the walk of this mile, he just took off super fast because he was so excited, which probably every runner has at different times, taken off and then died at the end. And it was really wild because Coach Woj, who, is the coach of Run GR, as you guys know, but other people don't, he was talking to Johnny after the race, and Johnny was just wiped out. And Johnny said, started out way too fast. And Coach Woj got a tear in his eye because here's a kid that's disabled who now has experienced exactly what runners have experienced in a race of going out too fast, trying to recover and arrive at the end. And a big awakening for Johnny to realize exactly what goes into participating in a race.
Yeah.
But really, that applies to anybody who's able-bodied as well. So, Johnny's just a microcosm of what it takes to overcome some major obstacles. But, anybody can, if you have the willingness, you have the motivation. We hear from people all over the country. Johnny's been featured. He was on the top TV show in Japan where they featured us, and just wild things. But you don't always see people like Johnny. You see, dads pushing kids in chairs a lot, and mothers now pushing kids in chairs, and it's a little more frequent than it used to be. Many years ago, there's one team, Rick and Dick Hoyt, who kind of paved the way for all of us teams that are trying to do races now. And there'll never be another group like them because they started out when nobody was allowing people in races, and now the door's open. But for Johnny to get up and actually walk, and it's a miracle for him because we were told when he was born, he probably would never talk, which sometimes could be a plus, but no. But
hey now,
I'm just kidding with him. But he were told that he probably would never walk. And for him to have walked a mile in a walker so many times now, it's just been amazing. And but he's made so much great progress, but you have to have the right motivation. Yeah. So I think back to, I've always had to kind of hold on to his walker to keep him going straight. And my wife, who is super creative, was trying to find a way to thank Michael Phelps for all the motivation he's given Johnny over the course of time. Anytime Johnny's down, he'll watch the Michael Phelps video of when he was getting ready for the Olympics. Yeah. And so rather than sending him a letter, my wife Becky decided she was going to recreate that video with Johnny doing exactly what Michael Phelps does and put the videos side by side. So you see Michael Phelps working out and the same thing Johnny's doing just the way he does it. So just really cool. But we got to the part where Michael Phelps is swimming by himself down the lane, and we're kind of talking, saying, well, Michael Phelps' dad isn't there, swimming with him. So this is going to look a little odd where I'm with Johnny. And so Johnny just said, well, start filming. And he just took off. And it was the first time ever he had walked by himself with his walker. But he was trying to do it because he was so motivated by what Michael Phelps had done. And Michael Phelps is his hero. So with the right motivation, it's just stunning what people can do. And he's done it. So.
That's awesome.
Well, you're surely an inspiration to us too. I just have
So
loved
much.
this
Thank
conversation so much. So is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything else you want to share?
Well, I always say in sports, some people say it's either you win or you lose, but I like to say sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And you have to learn from every experience, just like every athlete does, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that. But I learned from every experience. I have to fail all the time in order for me to succeed at something. So that's what I like to say to people is failure is not a roadblock, but a stepping stone for you to accomplish what you want. And that could be in sports, that could be in school, that could be in anything. So that's one of the things that I like to always leave people with, and a key message for me.
Yeah, just to add on to that, if you think back to, we got invited to the Ironman World Championship. We didn't make it to the bike cutoff. We got halfway. A good size, what you would call a failure. But it was, not only it was a tough thing to do, but what it led to has really been extraordinary. So because we didn't make it, we've been trying like crazy to get back. We keep doing more races. Johnny has subsequently, connected pretty well with Michael Phelps, and so they're social media friends. And so Johnny, this commercial that Becky had made about Michael Phelps and Johnny being side by side, Under Armour actually took that and made it into a real commercial and broadcast it in Michigan. Yeah. And then because of they loved Johnny's inspiration and his spirit, and so they actually put him in a commercial with pretty much the biggest movie star in the world, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And so, and then Johnny, when we got invited up to come out to Under Armour and got the royal treatment and got to speak to a lot of their employees, and Johnny gave her, and as a family, we just gave a motivational speech to the company that was going through a tough time at the time. And it's just one of those things where the opportunities that came up because of that, what we call a successful failure, that wasn't an end to things. It was a stepping stone to some pretty cool things we've been able to do. And now it would have been nice to finish in Hawaii and then be done and go out, in a blaze of glory. But the things that's led to for Johnny have been so dramatic that we never would have done. He never would have been in a commercial for Under Armour in a worldwide campaign with the biggest movie star in the world. So just a cool opportunity there. And bigger things keep coming up. Johnny and my wife, Becky, wrote a book that's going to be coming out hopefully in about a year. It's just a long process, but the book is done and in an editing phase. And so hopefully it'll come out sometime down the road here. And it's just cool opportunities that never would have come up had we gotten through Hawaii and Kona the first time through. So we take Johnny's advice, that sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So it's hard to do, but if you can implement it, it can be very rewarding.
Oh, that's such great advice. And we'll keep our audience updated on the book release and other things that the two of you are doing. So we are very inspired by you, and we're so grateful that you came on the show.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it very much.
There's so much more we could have talked to the Agars about. We've linked to ways to follow them and the videos mentioned in the interview at AtoZrunning.com/episode 49.
Next, we're going to hear from the Johncocks.
Bill and Logan Johncock are a father-son duo who have qualified for Boston at the 2019 Myrtle Beach Marathon in March, in which they ran 3:30:52. That's 8:02 mile average for 26.2 miles. Logan's love for the sport of running and his delight reaching finish lines has motivated Bill to continue to tackle big goals. The Johncocks have a legacy of running in their family. Bill has run 104 marathons, his fastest being 2:34 at the Chicago Marathon in 1990. Bill's father, Logan's grandfather, ran 116 marathons. He started running at 50, set several national age group records in the 70s and 80s in races of half marathon, up to 50K. It's in Logan's blood to love the running events, and Bill, his father, as his teammate, Logan's otherwise impossible dream has been made a reality. Hi, Bill. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Zach. Hey, Andy. How you guys doing?
Doing great,
We're
thanks.
good. So we just
Good.
gave a little background on you and Logan. And first of all, I want to congratulate you on that amazing BQ time 3:30 that you did together. Do you
That's
want to unpack
incredible.
that race a little bit for us?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for us. We went out and to be honest with you, we've done a few marathons together, but I've never really tried to run hard like a qualifying time or anything else with him. And so it happened to be I was turning 55, and since I hit 55, I got another few minutes on the Boston qualifying time, but I still had to run 3:35, and so I wasn't sure whether I could do it on my first attempt or not. I've run Boston solo, but just never trying to push Logan. And so it was great weather. They were kind of predicting rain, which is really less than optimal, especially if you're pushing somebody. And so they call us duo teams. When you do duo teams, you're really hoping that the weather's not bad, because when you're running, you're generating heat. But Logan, if he's out in the rain and the elements, less than optimal. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. So it's a great day. We had a great start. Actually, I got to mile 12 that day, and I saw my wife and daughter, who were our cheerleaders, out on the course, and I wasn't having a great time. And my wife saw me, and she says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." It was one of those things. But when you're already feeling bad at 12 miles, you're like, I'm not too sure about this. So, but at mile 15 to 18, we kind of hit a tailwind, and I was starting to drop down our times back to where they should be, and I was starting to feel a little bit better. My stomach kind of calmed down, and got to about mile 20, and I started cramping. Actually, my calf started cramping, but my hand started cramping because you're pushing the chair. And I've had that happen a couple times, but it was not exactly the most opportune time for that to happen. So your calves are cramping, your hands are cramping, and Logan's just having a good time in the chair. And I got through that tough stretch, and he kind of looked back at me like, "Come on, Dad, let's get going." And so I'm trying to work through all of that. And I got to mile 24, and then not only my calves were cramping and my hands were cramping, my hamstrings started cramping as well. And so I'm like, I'm slowing down, and he kind of looks back again because we're not moving as fast as we're supposed to. And come on, man. And Logan's nonverbal, so he can't really talk, but he gets his ideas across. So he's like, "Come on, man." And so I'm like trying to push through the cramping and alter my gait, and all those things that you do at the end of a marathon to try to get through it. And I'm losing a little bit of time, but I'm still close to 5 minutes under the qualifying time. So I'm around 3:30, but I'm losing time. I'm like, oh, I can't lose too much because I might miss the bubble. And so I come down that final straight, and I'm all tears, and half the tears are joy, and half of them are pain, and half of it's cramping, and it's all this mush of all this stuff together. And we come across the line, and it was just, we ran just under 3:31, and it was just an awesome day. But I was like, I could hardly move, and he kind of looks up at me like, "Oh, why are you stopping? Come on, dude." And I'm like, "Yeah, we're done today." And he'd been in the chair for like 4 hours up till then, and he's still wanting to just still go. So it was just an awesome day.
Oh,
So
what
my
a
wife
treat.
and daughter were there, and it was just one of those things. I've run for 40 years, but I haven't had many of those times where things really go well, and it's that exciting where you really hit that goal, especially as old as I am. So,
Sure,
Ah,
sure.
now you're
yeah.
young. You're young at heart.
Well,
Yeah.
marathoners everywhere are hearing
Yeah.
your description and cringing in sympathy with you in those
Uh,
final throws of the race, but cheering in exultation, that feeling. We know
Mhm.
that feeling. And it's like you say, you can do this a long time and not see things come together well for you. And so you got to take those moments when you can get them, even when they don't feel great in the ending there.
So how
Yeah.
great was it to be able to share that with Logan, this moment of a victory for you? How was that to share that with Logan?
I mean, it was just, once again, being a runner as long as I have and having qualified for Boston, doing some other things, I've experienced a lot of running. I'm a 2:34 marathoner, so I'm nothing like you guys at Olympic
That's
trials
fast.
qualifiers, but I make the most out of, limited ability. And so I've had a lot of fun things, but I have to say that day was just probably the most exciting day that I've ever had, just to be able to experience that more than my other BQ times and more than running a PRs. And I've done a lot of crazy things over the years, which I've been blessed to do. But that was just because it's doing it with my son, and just the way that Logan lights up when he's running, it just makes it that much more special for us to do it as a team rather than just being solo.
So the training, tell us a little bit about you and Logan and training together.
Yeah, most of our training goes on the weekends just because that's when he's available and I'm available and so forth. And so just about every Saturday and Sunday, we get in our long run on the weekend, and usually another 8 to 10 miler that we also do on the weekend to try to get those miles in together. Um, Training's a little different with him. One of the things, we qualified at Myrtle Beach, and Myrtle Beach is obviously very flat. And so one of the things that we've been trying to do differently when we were trying to get ready for Boston, when we thought Boston was actually going to occur, was working on hill work. And so been doing quite a bit of that. Been dealing with some Achilles tendonitis stuff, and that that doesn't go real well together. Just hills and Achilles, but hills and Achilles, and pushing a chair that weighs about 50 pounds, and Logan's about 110 pounds, 160 pounds extra is kind of a little bit extra. So I just have to be careful at 56 now that I don't overdo it and don't push it. But I do need to be ready for the hills when we go up and down those Boston hills. But we love running together, and he just when I have my running stuff on, he just lights up and he's ready to go.
So how does his joy bring you joy?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm blessed to have two other kids, and, you do other things with your kids where you see them really enjoy things. My daughter's very artistic, and she just lights up when she does something artistic. We were just eating dinner and she was painting something, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I have zero creative ability. She gets that all from her mama, none from me, dad at all. But it's great to see that. My son, he ran some. He's now 25, but also played basketball. And you see those things where hey, they succeed and they have that joy. That's just really Logan and my way to connect with each other. That, like I said, he's nonverbal, but it doesn't take anybody to see that, hey man, he's loving it, being out there and doing that with dad. And it's just it's hard to describe that connection that you have in that way. But that's part of the reason why we run with a group called Ainsley's Angels, and part of the reason why we want other people to experience that same thing, because a lot of other special needs children will never be able to see that joy that we have in the same way. And in that way, that pairs able-bodied people with special needs people, that they can share the joy of running too. So it's our way of connecting.
So we're going to link to that information of how you can get involved and donate at AtoZrunning.com/episode 49.
One of the things I'm curious, just kind of your reaction in this specific context, Bill. One of the things that we cherish about opportunities to be involved in community, and especially involved in community that can be supportive and giving, generous in various ways. It's that twofold blessing of I can give to someone else and give them something, an opportunity or an experience. And by doing that, I experience something there too. but then I can also participate with them. And, even as you're describing that, you can, as a person who can support someone like by pushing or something like that. And I know a lot of times they even have just support teams that, whether we rotate through people who are helping push, or we're just running it together and have a group that's doing it together too. Those are really powerful moments. And so we appreciate opportunities like this that people can connect with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people have the idea, well, I've got to commit 20 races a year or something like this. But, you can do it. There are different teams that are out there. Team Hoyt does, Rick and Dick Hoyt, they have a team that does the same sort of thing, and Ainsley's Angels, and there's another group, Kyle and Brad Pease, they do a group out of Atlanta. And there's a lot of other groups that do these things together where, you can just do one 5K. And I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to do a marathon, or they do sometimes combinations with triathlons. I think the big thing is just finding ways to give back. I mean, I think you volunteer at a race and hand out water, or you do different things, coaching. I was blessed to be coaching for 7 years myself, and just finding different ways to give back to running, because running, let's face it, can be pretty selfish endeavor a lot of times. You put a lot of time and so forth. And I love running. And I mean, I've had a lot of blessings that come out of it, but I want other people to share in that. So finding different ways to give back, I think, is really the key. Some people, maybe they can't even do that, but maybe they can give to a cause, or maybe they can do a charity marathon or something else. So there's tons of different ways that you can give back through what you do. And inevitably, when we give back, we receive more joy. It is for me than what I give out. And sometimes I've been reluctant in that. And it's just a great opportunity to do that, to see the joy in other people.
Mm.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, thank you for giving to us your time, for giving your story, which we will post more of that at AtoZrunning.com/episode 49. But thank you so much, Bill, for sharing you and Logan's story.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I love watching and hearing you guys. I love A to Z podcast. So just really appreciate you guys and what you mean to the running community yourselves.
Thank you, Bill. It was great to hear from Bill about his experience as a teammate with Logan, and there is more that we could have shared for their story as well. So we want to make sure that we link to ways to get connected to them, as well as supporting Ainsley's Angels. So we have that donation page there if you feel so moved, but also ways that you can possibly get involved with Ainsley's Angels, or maybe My Team Triumph that the Agars participate in as well.
So here's the thing. We see these examples, and these are some of many as both of them have talked about others as well. And we see this and we think, this is opportunities to bring the experience of running to people who cannot do it themselves by themselves. And it's just such an incredible thing. So as Bill was talking especially, and he's saying there's so many ways to get involved and so many ways to get involved. And the Agars have talked about so many people who have been a part of the experience for them. I cannot help but be moved by the way the running community can help bring running to people who can't do it themselves.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.